What was I doing here? Was it a punishment for being an orphan? There were days and days of this misery ahead, noise and swaying and rattling and worrying. I would not survive. Or will I right down here in this aisle, I thought, and die of swaying and rattling and washing up, and there will be no one to mourn for me. I was almighty blue. I rocked and stumbled back to my seat. Lacey was eating an apple. She gave me a scared smile. Are we almost there? She asked. Where? Wherever we're going. We're going lots of places, but we ain't at any of them yet, I said. As I watched the land rush by, the skies grew darker and darker. A flash of light preceded the sound of thunder. Mickey Dooley shouted, "Put the frog out, Bill. I think it's going to rain." And it did. It rained cats and dogs, walking sticks and flowered hats, plum cake and sausages, fish bowls and fur-lined caps, washed out bridges and prairie fires, and who knows what else. Thunder rolled in once more, and lightning danced in the sky. Screaming and trembling, Lacey pulled her skirt up over her head. I turned away from her. Being scared, like having lice, was something one was supposed to keep to oneself. The gamblers turned to racing raindrops, cheering them on, betting on which would be first to reach the bottom of the window. Marbles and peach pits changed hands again. "Hey, Potato Nose, you want in on this?" Sammy asked. "Try your luck." I shook my head. I had plenty of luck, all of it bad. If I wagered with them, I'd no doubt lose my boots, my hair, and my seat on the train, and end up bald and barefoot lost on the prairie. No, sir, not me. I would not bet on anything good happening for me. When the rain finally eased, I could see only flat fields and scattered black patches of plowed earth. Late in the afternoon, we passed the first house we had seen in some hours, and leaning on the fence was a boy who looked like he had been waiting for us. The engine tooted, he waved, and then hung there until the train passed. Even longer, maybe. Maybe he's still there waiting for us to come back. They should send some orphans to that kid, I thought. Never had I seen a face so lonely. I bet he'd be good to them and not make them work too hard. So grateful he'd be for their company. And at night they could pop corn and tell stories, and when the train passed by, they could all go wave to it together and then talk about it after supper. As the light failed outside, the conductor lit the gas lamps. Mr. Sprott passed out jelly sandwiches again, and apples, and sticks of celery. I wondered what he and Miss Doctor ate. Did they have to be satisfied with jelly sandwiches like we did? I looked behind me to check. Mr. Sprott was snoring in his seat, and Miss Doctor was occupied with the littlest kids, cutting up apples for them to share. Maybe she didn't eat at all. I wondered what had happened to her sandwich. I stretched my feet out toward the stove, letting the heat defrost my toes. "I hurt," said a little voice in front of me. Gertie, of course. "You ain't going to vomit, are you?" I asked, pulling away. She shook her head. "But I hurt all over." "Maybe you're just cold. Sit her by the stove a minute." She tried to climb into my lap, but I crossed my legs and settled her between Lacey and me. The big boy who had called me Cabbage Eater swaggered over to warm his hands. "Hey, Herman," Sammy said from his seat across the aisle. "I remember you from Chicago." "Call me Hermie the Knife," the boy said, fingering something in his pocket that might or might not have been a knife. He was one scary-looking fellow, what my mamma would call a hooligan, and his greasy hair, crooked nose, and a shadow above his lip that just might be the beginnings of a mustache. "Yeah, I remember you. You and your brother." "Join my brother," Sammy said. "I thought you was happy in Chicago," said Joe. "How come you're on this train?" Hermie shrugged. "I'm here, but I ain't sticking around. Taking off as soon as I get the chance. Don't want nothing to do with no hicks, hayseeds, rubes, clodhoppers, yokels, or bumpkins." "Don't you want a family?" Gertie asked Hermie. "Don't need no family," said Hermie. "I got my gang, the Plug Uglies, and we don't let nobody push us around, especially some yokel from Yokel'sville." At that, Hermie the Knife stopped and noticed who was speaking to him. "Hey, it's Gertie the Whiner and Cabbage Eater. And looky here, they're sitting with Cabbage Head, who don't know how many beans make 5. You three are just right for Yokel'sville." "Cabbage Eater, that how you got so big eating cabbage?" asked Sammy. "And don't forget potatoes. We seen her eat plenty of potatoes," Joe added. "Yeah, our potatoes." I turned and looked out the window again. Could I just take off like Hermie? I was old enough and big enough to take care of myself, but we weren't in Chicago anymore. Where were we? And where would I go from here? I fell asleep, but was awakened some time later by the sounds of crying. That wasn't unusual in this car full of orphans, but this crying was right in my ear. Gertie, of course. Shh, Gertie, cuddle up with Lacey and go back to sleep. But she kept crying, and the other kids began to stir. Come with me, I said, pulling her by her hand to the back of the car. The lady doctor was looking out the window. I couldn't see why. It was just darkness out there. Black darkness. Gertie blubbered again, and I pushed her face into my skirt. Miss, I said. Doctor, she said. Gertie here won't stop crying, and she's waking up all the other kids. The lady doctor turned to us. Leave her with me. I'll take care of her. The gaslight flickered on her glasses, shooting off sparks in my direction. I shivered, glad it was Gertie and not me left with old Miss Don't Touch.